A warm welcome to this global WWF webinar today. I'm very happy to see so many of you from all around the planet. Uh, Today, we are having our fourth global webinar in our strategic support program, following the One Planet City Challenge 2025 to 2026. My name is Sabina Andrén, and I'm a program manager of the One Planet City Challenge Global Coordination Team at WWF. So today we are taking next step in understanding the One Planet City Challenge, and we are diving into the assessment framework, a guide to what it is, how it works, and why it matters for your city. I'm very much looking forward to this session, and you are very welcome to use the chat for questions and comments. We can have a look at some logistic checks. So as you can see, the session is being recorded. You are very welcome to add your city or organization that you are representing to your username in the participants list. Keep yourself muted, and if you want, with video on. As I told you, we are happy to have a conversation in the chat, exchange information, introduce yourself, etc. And we have interpretation in Spanish. You are welcome to click at the globe on the bottom of the screen in the Zoom menu to access the language channel. So the agenda today, at the next slide. It looks like this. So we will devote quite a lot of time in this session to be guided to the OPCC assessment framework. We will for sure learn a lot, but there will also be time to listen to a broader perspective where we will talk about the impact and values that the OPCC has had so far at the global scale and in the cities arena. So there will also be time for question and answers, and we will share next steps in the One Planet City Challenge. So I'm very happy to present our speakers today, who are Rafaela Fonteles, who is our Technical Project Officer at WWF Cities Global Team, and Lily Elisha, a master student in environmental sciences at ETH Zurich and Berkeley. A warm welcome to both of you, and we are very much looking forward to listen to your presentation soon. But first, I would like to take the opportunity to say a few words about our global flagship program, the One Planet City Challenge. We live in a time of climate urgency, and action is needed on all levels. We are convinced that cities have the power to drive transformative change, but navigating the path toward a climate resilient future can indeed be complex. By joining the One Planet City Challenge, your city will receive strategic feedback and support that guide you along your individual climate journey. But how does the OPCC look more in practice? Well, here you can see an illustration with 5 key elements, or let's call them key values, which you take part of as a participant. So we are now in the starting phase where registration and reporting is taking place. Each city that participates in the One Planet City Challenge disclose relevant climate data at an international standardized data platform, CDP ICLEI-TRAC. And this data is important as a source for the assessment and review that takes place in the next step. And that is the topic for today's webinar. And as you can see, this assessment in turn is important for the tailor-made strategic feedback that each of you as cities participants will receive, together with different capacity building activities at global level, but which also happens in different regions and countries. And of course, as a global nature conservation organization, we are working a lot with engagement and mobilizations of citizens and stakeholders. And finally, the OPCC is also a friendly competition where we recognize and celebrate frontrunners in the field. And with that, I think we are moving straight into the first part, which is a deep dive into the OPCC assessment framework. Over to you, Rafaela, and a warm welcome again.
Thank you, Sabina, for the introduction. As Sabina said, my name is Rafaela Fonteles. I work in the WWF Cities team, developing and improving our assessment framework. And I'm very glad to be here today to present it to you and show why it's so central to the One Planet City Challenge, and also how it can be useful for you participant cities. So let's start by explaining what it is. It's basically a collection of the criteria and methods that we use to evaluate and assess our participant cities' climate journey. So we have set some criteria and methods, like I said, to assess your climate journey. And this criteria will measure your city's vision and impact, meaning where your city is going and how it plans to get there. And we also develop some methods to identify opportunities to make your city's targets and actions more ambitious and more effective. This is the Assessment Framework Technical Document 2025, which contains the detailed description of our assessment framework, and you will have access to this document too. Next slide, please. So the assessment framework is in the core of the One Planet City Challenge as the mechanism that enables us to process your city data into actionable insights for your cities. So our assessment focuses on public disclosed data. Like Sabina said, we invite our cities to report its climate data on CDP ClayTrack, this global platform that is also connected with other initiatives. And then we collect the information we need through the CDP's public database. Then we use the assessment framework. We analyze the data using our methods and criteria, which are based on global climate science and best practices. And we finally share the results of this assessment with our cities through the OPCC reports. Next slide, please. As I said, our framework is grounded in climate science reports and also aligned with other global initiatives to ensure an evidence-based and up-to-date analysis of your city data. These are examples of the references we use to build our methods and criteria. So, for example, the GCOM's latest common reporting framework, the white one, which provides the main structure of our assessment framework, including the climate journey steps and the 3 climate change pillars that I will explain later better. We also developed our methods based on the scientific reports from the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC reports, the latest one from 2022. And last year, we made the most recent improvements to our framework, incorporating recommendations from Integrity Matters report, which is a guidance for cities on credible and transparent targeting and reporting. Next slide, please. So using science and best practices as a base, we structured our assessment framework in these 3 components. The data integrity diagnosis, which include indicators that we use to evaluate the quality and completeness of the reported data. The scoring criteria, which includes indicators that we use to evaluate your city's vision and impact. And the complementary feedback, which includes methods to provide your city with forward-looking feedback on its targets and actions. And the results of these analyses are shared with our cities through 2 reports. The GAPS report with results from data integrity diagnosis and scoring criteria, and the strategic feedback report with insights from both the scoring criteria and complementary feedback. Together, these reports are practical outcomes to help strengthen your city's reporting and climate journey. Next slide, please. So let's explain each of these three components. The first one, the data integrity diagnosis, is a set of rules and criteria designed to verify the data reported by your city to ensure that it is consistent, credible, and complete. So we developed 47 indicators, each with its own criteria and rules, to evaluate the quality of all the relevant data that we need to assess your climate journey, your city climate journey. For example, in this table, the first one indicator, we have to check if the projected population your city reported lies within the expected order of magnitude. So the rule that we use to check this indicator is if the annual population growth reported by your city is greater than minus 0.06% and less than 4.35%. And we have other indicators to check your emissions by sector, the year of your targets, everything. We have 47 indicators to check all the data that is relevant and that you reported. Next slide, please. So the result of this analysis is shared with your city through the GAPS report in the quality evaluation session. So for each of those indicators, your city receives a quality check that can be please review if something is need improvement, not applicable or no data reported if the data is incomplete or not reported, and the checked when everything is fine. So many cities can receive please review feedback in case, for example, the adaptation goals don't cover all the significant hazard they have reported in the climate risk assessment, or in case the actions they reported are not fully described, if they didn't report, for example, a funding source for the actions. And this GAPS report is usually received before the reporting period is closed. So the cities would have time, the chance to review, to correct, and improve the data submitted. This cycle, the OPCC, will be slightly different, and you will receive the GAPS report in early 2026. But you will still be able to improve your data, your reporting for the next time you will report your data. And improving your city's reporting enables you to increase scoring in the One Planet City Challenge. But most important than this, it enables you to receive a more robust and reliable assessment of your climate action plan. Next, please. So the second component of the assessment framework is the scoring criteria, which we evaluate your city's climate journey, considering these 5 steps of this cyclical journey. So step 1, assessing, when cities calculate their emissions, identify risks, assess energy poverty levels. Step 2, target setting, when cities establish targets for reducing emissions, adapting to climate risks, and increasing access to energy. Step 3, planning, when the cities develop detailed plans with actions to reach these targets. Step 4, implementing, executing these plans through policies and programs. And step 5, monitoring, when the cities will track progress, report results, and adjust the plans as needed. And our scoring criteria includes indicators to evaluate your city's report data for each of these 5 steps. Next, please. So this cycle of the OPCC, we have 43 indicators compared to 36 indicators in the previous cycle. And for each indicator, there is a maximum score your city can get. And a city's total score can reach a maximum of 150 points. 50% of the total score goes to evaluate your city's vision, including the scores from indicators in assessment, targeting, and monitoring steps, in the same proportion showed in this graph. And the other 50% of the total scores goes to evaluate your city's impact, distributed between indicators in planning and implementing steps, also in this same proportion of distribution. And the total score is also distributed among indicators across the 3 pillars of climate change: mitigation, adaptation, and energy access and poverty. For cities that are not new, that are doing join the OPCC for the second or third time, you can see that this cycle we added the energy access and poverty pillar, and we introduced 5 new energy-related indicators in the scoring criteria. We also incorporated 2 indicators in this cycle, inspired by the Integrity Matters recommendations that I mentioned, that are related to transparent use of carbon credits and inclusive planning processes. And we are fully transparent in the way we evaluate your city's climate journey, as you can find the criteria behind the indicators in the indicator cards. This document contains 1 card for each of the 43 indicators, explaining how the scores are calculated for each of them. And there are also 12 additional cards for informational indicators that are not scored, but we used for other internal analysis. Next, please. So the first result of this analysis that we conduct using scoring criteria indicators is shared in the GET report, specifically in the completeness evaluation session, where your score is presented per each indicator. In this way, your city can identify specifically which aspects of its climate journey should be better reported or improved. Next, please. But the main practical outcome of the scoring criteria evaluation is the strategic feedback report. It's this document where your city can use to review its final scores for vision and impact, and also for each climate journey step, but also to identify its strengths and weaknesses of its plans through this many graphical and textual content in the 14 pages of the strategic feedback report. For example, one example of the graphical content is the Sankey diagram that you can see that shows the emissions in scope 1, 2, and 3, how they are spread across different sectors. And your city can use this to identify where stronger targets are needed. And also another example, the chart with the number of implemented actions compared to the ones that are still going to be implemented. In this way, you can track your city's progress. It's also important to mention that the final scoring results are also used to guide the friendly competition of the One Planet City Challenge that we will mention later too, and that Sabine already mentioned. Next, please. And finally, the third component of the assessment framework is the complementary feedback, which includes these 3 methods to provide your city with the strategic guidance on setting more ambitious and equitable emissions reduction targets, and also to plan more effective mitigation and adaptation actions. Also, let's next, please. Let's explain them one by one, how the methods work. So we use the 1.5 Celsius degrees alignment method to assess your city's targets against the Paris Agreement goal, the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 Celsius degrees. And we don't just assess, but we also guide your city in setting science-based targets that reflect its fair share of global reductions. So it consists basically in calculating your city's per capita emissions in 2018, which is our base year. Then we apply a fair factor based on your city's national or regional HDI to define how much your city might cut emissions by 2030 to align with a global reduction of 50% and to reach net zero by 2050. So if your city has a higher HDI, you should contribute with more than 50% cuts, and the opposite too. So the detailed description of this method was very well presented in the previous webinar held in May. The link for the recorded session will be provided in the chat in case you want to check it out. Next slide, please. And the two other methods, the mitigation and adaptation actions methods, we use them to recommend the most effective and evidence-based actions for your cities based on its unique characteristics and context. So the mitigation actions method points to the most impactful measures that your city can take to cut emissions while also creating other co-benefits. And it looks at your city's typology, meaning the shape and the growth patterns of your city, and also its geographic subregion, to recommend your city with the most commonly reported actions in the cities with the same profile and same context they report on CDP. And we suggest 3 mitigation actions for each of the 4 IPCC strategy types, which are urban planning, clean energy, green infrastructure, and lifestyle shifts. So, for example, when it comes to urban planning strategies, a compact city with a growing population in North Asia might be advised to implement transit-oriented development because this is the most common approach that is reported in that subregion. But if it's a growing city in the same region, but instead of compact with a dispersed development, the recommendation could be to plan an eco-district strategy instead, because they have 2 different typologies of cities. And in another way, for a dispersed, fast-growing city, but in North Africa, the advice would be to focus on policies to address urban sprawl. And because this is the most common approach in that subregion. So that's how we make tailored recommendations for your cities based on your shape, growth, and subregion. The same way in the adaptation action methods, we highlight the measures that has the greatest potential to reduce your city's climate risks. So this method looks at the most common hazard in your region and suggests practical actions that other cities already use successfully as they report on CDP. We recommend 5 actions for each of the 4 main hazard categories, which are extreme heat, urban flooding, including sea level rise, water scarcity, and other location-specific risks. So, for example, to address extreme heat in northeastern South America, for example, the most commonly reported and therefore the recommended action is to expand green infrastructure, while in Southern Europe, the focus is more on heat mapping or thermal imaging. So this is how we also make tailored recommendations for adaptation actions to your city. Next slide, please. And the result of the complementary feedback assessment, all these 3 methods is shared in the strategic feedback report in these 3 sheets. So the first sheet shows the results of the 1.5 alignment method on how your city's emissions reduction trajectory, this green line, compares to the OPCC benchmark in 2030, this white dot below the line, and also how it compares to net zero in 2050, the other dot in the end of the timeline in the graph. And this is, in this example, this graph gives guidance on target setting because it indicates how much more your city would need to cut emissions, to reduce emissions by 2030 to reach the benchmark and to stay in line with Paris Agreement. These second and third sheets show the outcomes of the 2 action methods with the lists of the most impactful and efficient mitigation and adaptation actions for your city. And we highlight the high priority strategy types for mitigation actions and high priority hazard categories for adaptation actions, using these different colors and symbols for you to know which are the high priority ones. And these recommendations, of course, they serve as an entry point to inspire your city, then for your city to refine and customize the action plans using it as a reference. Next slide, please. Yes, and we are happy to say that we are developing this new assessment tool that we believe will make a great improvement on how we share your results with your city. The tool will automatize our assessment and also make these two reports easily available for our cities, since they can be generated in the tool. So the tool also provides your city with new ways to visualize its results. For example, we can generate this graph that compares your city's vision and impact with those vision and impact of other cities that you can select yourself. These other cities are represented by the axis, and many other graphs to visualize your city and compare to other cities all over the world. Next slide, please. So these are the practical outcomes that your city will receive after we evaluate and assess your reported data using our assessment framework. We give you the GAPS report that helps you to improve reporting and data quality, strategic feedback report, which highlights the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for more effective target and actions, and the assessment tool, which generates both reports, beside offering interesting and useful graphs for you to explore and visualize your results. And together, these outcomes give your city with practical insights, clear visualization, and tailored guidance for you to advance your climate journey. As Sabina commented, the One Planet City Challenge is also a friendly competition. We will mention more about this, but we also want to say that the assessment tool will be available for cities in early 2026, as well as your city's GAPS report and a strategic feedback report, which will be generated by the tool. And also that's why this cycle you will receive the GAPS report a bit later than it used to be. But you can still use the GAPS report. It's very useful for your next reporting, for example. So about the friendly competition, it celebrates and recognizes our front runners. So the top scoring cities will be recognized at national and international levels. And we will share more information about the friendly competition in upcoming webinars. Sabina will also summarize the One Planet City Challenge timeline and next steps for participating cities later in this webinar. And I hope you feel inspired. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rafaela. It was a very good and pedagogical walkthrough of a very impressive assessment framework. And if you are totally new to this, don't worry, we will share our links and there is plenty of time to ask questions and follow up after this webinar as well. Maybe I want to put one question to you before moving on, Rafa. Now you have presented the framework very much as the backbone of the One Planet City Challenge. And we have many returning cities now. We have been running several rounds. Could you just quickly summarize? So what are the main updates that we should be aware of? And why did we develop this, the motivation for this?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Sabina. Yeah, first of all, I think for the other the participants that already participate before, we already have quite a comprehensive framework in the last rounds, since it already evaluate the 5 climate journey steps in the 2 climate change pillars, mitigation and adaptation, right? And we know how important it is to keep stability of our framework so the participants can know what to expect and reporting effort that is required from them. We make changes when they are truly significant. But that said, in this cycle, we have important updates. As I said before, the biggest change is that we added the 3rd climate change pillar, energy access and poverty. And this pillar was launched in the COP27, and it was incorporated by Global Covenant of Mayors, the GCOM. in their common reporting framework to recognize how important it is that cities have secure, affordable, and sustainable energy, enabled to have a sustainable development and for people's well-being. So we reflected this in 5 new indicators in our scoring criteria. These indicators check if the cities have energy-related assessment, targets, actions, and also if they monitor these action implementations. But we still have the same maximum score of 150 points, and we redistribute this scoring in between among mitigation, adaptation, and the new pillar energy access and poverty. And for the cities, it means that if you have energy-related reporting, we will recognize your efforts, we will give you feedback, and you may gain some advantage in the friendly competition compared to cities that focus only on mitigation and adaptation, for example. We also have introduced indicators that, like I said, inspired in the recommendations in the Integrity Matters report, which is a guidance for cities on how to report with more integrity and transparency and credibility. And we want to do this to make sure that we are addressing the risk of greenwashing and insufficient progress of our cities. Anyway, so in this sense, we added 2 indicators. Like I said, one to check how openly the cities are reporting the use of carbon credits to meet targets. And the other is to check how inclusive cities are in their planning processes, especially engaging vulnerable groups and indigenous people. So in total, we have 7 new indicators and before in the scoring criteria, and beyond the scoring criteria, we also updated our complementary feedback methods to suggest the mitigation and adaptation actions that are more sensitive to geographic realities. This we got as a feedback from cities that wanted actions that were more relevant and more feasible for their local realities. So we heard this and we added this factor, this sub-regions. There are 45 sub-regions in the IPCC reports. So now we have added this to our methods. So these are the main updates.
That was very interesting and a good summary. Important to know, and really good work to doing these developments while keeping stability as well. So with this, and while you warm up with your own question using the chat, we will actually now broaden our perspective a bit and learn more about what impact and values do we know that the OPCC has made so far in a global perspective. And I welcome Lily Elisha to speak. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Lily Elisha, and I'm a current master's student at ETH Zurich who was able to work on a research paper related to the historical impact and evolution of the One Planet City Challenge. I'm very excited to be here today to present the quantitative and the qualitative results of this research with you all. As you may already know, the upcoming Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, special report in 2027 is going to be on the topic of cities. And so this research article will be cited in the report, highlighting organizations that work to support cities in the environmental sphere. Today, I am thrilled to brief all of you on the results of this research and highlight why your city may be a great fit for joining or continuing the OPCC program. Next slide, please. So I'm going to begin with a quantitative results summary. This first slide is highlighting the growth of the OPCC program since its inception in 2011, growing from 64 cities in that first 2013 cycle to 358 by 2023. So that top gray line highlights the historical growth as a collective, and then each color below denotes a different regional growth over time. So as you can see, the growth of the OPCC program really highlights the value of this collective network of cities that has been built through the program and is continuing to grow every year. Next slide, please. So all participants in the OPCC transparently report their city's climate data to VVF. And in turn, we are then able to provide this strategic feedback report, as Rafa has explained in the first section. So starting from the 2014 cycle, the VVF strategic assessment was organized via these vision and these impact indicators. These quantitative indicators come directly from the CDP ECLI track questionnaire. This is the platform for you to report through. And then the submission is shared with VVF for assessment. And as Rafa had explained in detail earlier, however, I'm going to reiterate, these vision indicators are broadly based on a city's commitments and strategies, which are outlined in their climate action planning targets. These are the plans that are reported by cities and then the ambition levels that are set in that report. And the impact indicators focus on the abatement progress of actions undertaken. These are, the actions directly undertaken by cities. So both sets of indicators assess both quantitative and qualitative data submitted by city officials. And the specific indicators can be shared in more details if requested after the presentation, but this would highlight which specific questions from the CDP ECLI track are encompassed in these collective vision and impact values. However, what's most important for us today is to showcase that across recurrently participating cities in the 2019, 2021, and 2023 cycles, statistical tests confirmed improvements in scoring across both the vision and impact dimensions as a whole. So here you can see the individual data points plotted by year across the vision and the impact dimensions, the 2023 being the darkest at the top. And what this highlights is that recurrent participation in the OPCC can support cities in setting targets and implementing their climate action goals. Next slide, please. Lastly, for these quantitative metrics, we did an analysis of the most recent OPCC cycle, which highlights if a city is aligned to 1.5 degrees Celsius targets via the alignment method that Rafa explained. Let me reiterate, no alignment means that a city is aligned to neither target. Partial alignment means that a city is in line with net zero emissions by the year 2050. And full alignment means that it is also aligned to net zero by 2050, but must also align per capita emissions in line with a 50% on a global level. And then, as we had said, that fair share of emissions accounted for by a city's HDI. And yes, so in terms of alignment, we saw proportionally more cities aligned to both full and partial alignment in the most recent cycle. Next slide, please. Related to survey feedback, based on the 2024 OPCC participant survey, more than 80% of participants said that they valued VVF's independent assessment. 78% said that the strategic feedback report gives a holistic overview of their work. And 70% said the report can be used to identify gaps in their work. And it's also important to note that the scale was 1 to 5, meaning 1 not agree, and 4 and 5 meaning agreement, 5 fully agree. Next slide, please. Furthermore, we have an array of positive cases from city participants around the world, 2 of which we wanted to highlight today. The first one from Louisville. The report allowed Louisville to advocate for an updated science-based GHG reduction target. Louisville now has an executive order and Metro Council resolution committing to net zero emissions by 2040. The data and the infographics in the report were very helpful in achieving this. And then back in Sweden in Lund, with the help of the One Planet City Challenge, Lund can benchmark our climate work in an international context and identify key areas where we need to improve in order to contribute in achieving the climate goals. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, participating in the OPCC allows for transparency in climate action planning and for cities to benchmark their progress over time. And so all participants are provided with a strategic feedback report and a gaps report based on their submission and have the opportunity to be celebrated for their progress via VVF. We see frontrunners helping to spur the global climate agenda, inspiring other cities on a local and an international level, and we encourage you to join in. So I will now pass the mic back to Sabina, who's going to lead us in a bit of a Q&A.
Yes, a warm thank you, Lily. It was a great presentation as well, with this helicopter perspective that encouraged us to continue improve together. We can see that we makes a difference. That's a really some good news we need to hear in these days. Some info regarding the timeline before opening up the panel, but I see activity is going on in the chat. So the timeline, as we can see here, is the following. By mid-September, or rather 17th of September, we encourage all of you who have started now the reporting and onboarded to submit, even though you are not finalized your reporting or have done all parts. We encourage you to submit. Why? Yes, that is because then we can monitor which cities are joining and plan our support better. And by supporting on the 17th of September, you will also receive CDP scoring, which adds values to all the outcomes you will have from reporting to the CDP ICLEI track. But of course, if you have now experienced problems, let's try to solve them. All cities have until 17th of November to report and submit. That is the final deadline. That is when the CDP ICLEI track closes. And any updates regarding the timeline will be published at CDP website. And maybe Saskia, you can paste the link in the chat here. So we have now September, October, November. And during this time, when submitting by September 17, you can easily reopen your questionnaire, improve and amend and resubmit. And that is a way to, we think, improve your reporting and make the most of your OPCC participation. And we will actually have a global webinar in mid-October, where we will go through tips and tricks around making the most of your OPCC participation in terms of reporting. And that in turn leads to an optimized strategic feedback. And of course, if you're interested in the friendly competition, it's also important. So we are in the middle of the reporting period, but there is still a lot of time, I think, for us to handle. And once again, welcome to contact us to solve individual problems with the reporting. I also like to stress here that this is now the September timeline you see. We are very much focused on the reporting, and that is because we are dependent on your data to make a good assessment, and that will bring a better outcome in your end, as well as Rafaela have presented with the GAPS report, the strategic feedback report, access to an online tool, and also the friendly competition. And all those steps are taking place in 2026, where we will share and you can access the online tool. We will have a global webinar presenting how it works and how you access your strategic feedback report and use your strategic feedback report. That will be very interesting, I think. But now I would like to open up the panel, if we can stop sharing and have a look at what's happening in the chat. Maybe Saskia, you can help us, guide us which question to bring up.
Yes, hello, and thank you for the presentations. And we had a question that you kind of already answered, Rafaela, but just to clarify, there's a question about if there's any information existing about specific actions to different regions and how to navigate that. Maybe you can just highlight again how you, and also how cities can learn more about that.
Yes, thank you, Saskia, and whoever made the question. We have developed tables, and we use the most reported actions in similar cities for each region, and we use most reported in CDP ICLEI track. So we use this because we want to make sure that these actions are feasible, are based on what is really happening, the evidence-based actions approach. We have this approach because we want to make sure that these actions are still being implemented successfully by other cities in the same region. Other cities that face the same hazards, for example, or other cities that have the same profile, that have the same population or density of yours. And this is how we can make it very tailored to your city's unique characteristics. But yeah, you can find the details on this in our technical documents, the assessment framework technical document. You will see the appendices, which have many detailed tables where you can see per region what are the main recommended actions in adaptation and mitigation. I hope I answered the question.
Very good. And now I have also catching up here in the chat. So we have a question also from Diana. With the change now in the indicators, the slight change within the total scoring 150, can you then compare 2024 to 2026 scoring between us for a city? That's a trick one, I think.
Yes. It is comparable. As I said, the proportion of indicators is small. The ones we added are five indicators, and the proportion of the scores are also small. If we compared, for example, in the cycle 2023, OPCC 2023, mitigation, the mitigation pillar had 55% of the scores, and adaptation pillar had 45% of the scores. And now we have 37.6% for mitigation, 32% for adaptation, 14.4% for integrated indicators that integrate all the pillars, and 16% for energy-related indicators. So I believe it is a change that it's not that significant. Still, mitigation is way higher scored, and I believe, yeah, I believe it's a comparable. What do you think, Sabina?
Yeah, it sounds wise. Yeah, I agree. A good way of explaining it. Very good to keep this general stability and to be able to compare. Thank you, Rafaela. So many things now is happening in the chat. I want to reply to one about can cities who haven't yet prepared or aligned their work join the OPCC now? And the reply is yes, you are very welcome to join. There is plenty of time because the CDP ICLEI track closes mid-November. You are welcome to contact us and get more information. We will provide all links needed, and I can especially point and recommend to our 2nd of July global webinar, where we shared a lot of more detailed information on the onboarding process. So how do you join? What steps you need to take? And maybe Saskia can share the link to that global webinar as well. So looking at the questions. Yeah, so Minnie asks, can cities who have reported in the previous reporting period resubmit their old inventory? How would that be evaluated in that case?
Should I answer
yeah,
this one?
Please try.
Yeah, yes, of course, you can resubmit your inventory. We have an indicator to assess the year of your emissions inventory. So yeah, it will be evaluated according to how recent it is, how up to date it is. But I don't know exactly from when your indicator, your inventory is. But yeah, of course you can resubmit it. It's still an effort that we recognize that you did it before.
Very good. And I see Saskia is also replying to questions in the chat. If we don't have time for all questions, we will for sure follow up, and you are also welcome to contact us. I would like to ask a question to you, Lily. So your research looks at the historical impact of the One Planet City Challenge. And from the data you have studied, what do you think stands out as the most significant impact of the program so far?
Yeah. So kind of my presentation talked about a lot of holistic or like the entire progress of the program as a whole. And I guess if you're saying what is the most impactful thing, it's these direct feedback from the cities, these direct cases saying that we used your data in implementing this in our city. We reduced GHG emissions using your high impact mitigation actions. Those are the ways that we can quantify the direct impact of the cities. And it truly encapsulates the impact of the program that way, is this direct feedback from the cities.
Yeah. Following on that, Lily, if you would like to share a key takeaway with a city considering whether to join the OPCC this year or not, what would that be?
Yeah. I guess it would be like we understand that the amount of data and time and resources required to report is overwhelming for many. But the reality is that any submission is better than no submission. And starting your climate action journey can really begin at any stage. And you can still get feedback on any amount of data that is shared. You have local offices and us that are willing to support you in that process.
Very good and very inspiring words for us and encouraging messages to those of you who are thinking about joining. Saskia, is there any more questions from the chat we want to bring up now? Or we want to proceed?
No, I think this is are the most important ones. We've had some technical questions as well, but I think we'll follow up with them separately. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much and for your activity in the chat. And we are not ending yet, but I think we will close the panel session now and open up for some final words around the OPCC and next steps. Thank you, Rafaela and Lily, once more. Share the PowerPoint again and go to the final slides. Yes. So as you have heard, we are very eager to invite you all to join our global program. You are not alone. Over 900 cities from 70 countries worldwide have participated at least once so far in the One Planet City Challenge, and we are now opening up the round 2025 to 2026. And with the OPCC, we really want to create and develop a comprehensive program that helps your city to deliver on the Paris Agreement and to increase the resilience of your city through integrated and ambitious climate action. And we do this together. So it's also very much of learning and exchanges peer-to-peer. And I want to share an example, an illustration. Next slide, please. Here you can see how the strategic support program is structured. We have these global webinars taking place, and we will share the link so you can have a look at each of them. This is the 4th, and in mid-October we will have the next one. But there is also a lot of activities going on in different regions and countries. So you're welcome to contact your local WWF office to check out what is happening. And here you see some examples of webinars that have taken place, and you also see some local exchanges here from the Philippines with the mayor actually from Baguio City. And we can have a look at the next slide where we summarize now the resources that are now available at our website. So this OPCC assessment framework, we have the technical document, which Rafaela so well has presented with no less than 4 appendices. So there is a lot of good literature for the weekend, and it's all available at our website, and we will of course share the links. And there will be a send out email after the webinar with recordings and all the information summarized again. And with that, we can actually go to next and final slide. I want to share again that by October 15 already, we have our next global webinar, and that will focus how, as a city, you can improve your reporting and make the most of your participation in this round. So there will be a sort of tips and tricks, what to look at, what to improve, and we will be inspired by what's in the GAPS report. So even if we don't have the GAPS report already in October in this specific round, we will use the structure from it and share tips and so on. And we will also be able to share more information about the friendly competition. And here you can also see email addresses and web links, etc. And we have a very nice YouTube channel with all webinars from this round and also from earlier rounds with a lot of interesting content, actually. Thank you very much and see you soon, I hope.